Hi, everyone. It's Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of my ongoing series entitled Monogamous at 13. Today, I will be sharing pieces of my story in this video, but I'm also going to be speaking about an issue that has come up for many of us in the United States and around the world in recent years, and especially at this particular time following the United States presidential election in 2024. I'm going to move just a little bit because I'm getting a tremendous glare from the lamp in the room. So sorry about that. Seeing if I can remedy that a little bit there. That's better. All right, so what I would like to speak about today is a few different things, but because I'm speaking about highly emotional issues, I'm asking each viewer if they would please take their very best care of their nervous system while they are viewing this video. This is a trigger warning. I do not wish to intentionally trigger anyone ever, but certain discussions cannot be had without having a recognition that some of the information shared could trigger someone to feel certain emotions and have certain memories, or to feel feelings in their body, or to possibly cause them to experience an autonomic nervous system fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response to trauma. And that is perfectly normal for that to happen. We are made to experience those things. Our nervous systems, particularly our central nervous system, is designed to have those responses. Our brain has two jobs. One is to keep us alive, and the other one is to keep us safe. And when we're having those fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses, it does not feel good to our system. This absolutely does not feel good, but it is part of our survival. And if we could just remember that the thing that we can do for ourselves when that begins to occur is shut off the video, stop listening, stop watching, walk away from whatever it is that triggered us whenever possible. And some things we can't get away from in life, but a YouTube video we can. And go into your highest, best self-care and be extra gentle and compassionate with yourself, noticing what comes up for you for the whole rest of the day and giving yourself that very, very compassionate and loving care to yourself so that you can ease your nervous system and bring yourself back into a state of safety. So with that, I'll begin. I have my grounding tool here with me. I have my little holy stone, and I am, like many other people, like millions, possibly hundreds of millions of people around the globe, aggrieved about what is happening in the United States of America right now. We're, 1 week out from for some people, a feeling of elation that their guy won. And for, millions of people, the exact opposite, a feeling of absolute devastation and hopelessness and shock. Let's talk about shock for a minute. What is so shocking about this? I can tell you my own feelings on this. I've been following Donald Trump since before he came down the elevator in 2015 to launch his campaign for the 2016 election. I knew at that point in time that I was opposed to a lot of his ideas. And mental health practitioners, for the most part, any health practitioners, we are strongly advised to remain apolitical. But I'm a trauma specialist, and when people are experiencing something traumatic, even if it is a political thing, it does not mean that I should just close my eyes, put my blinders on, and say, no, we're not going to talk about that. No, that's too taboo. We cannot talk about that. Pick something a little bit easier for my conscience and my nervous system to handle, because we're not going there. It makes me too uncomfortable to talk about or to listen to you about the trauma that you're feeling because of certain horrific things that a person and their followers, sycophants, I'll actually say, are wanting to do. And they are stating more and more and more of what they are wanting to do, not just wanting, planning to do. And some of the things are already going into practice that are going to hurt people. People's families are going to be affected. People's finances are going to be affected. People's relationships are going to be affected. Whether or not someone is housed is going to be affected. Homelessness is going to increase in a devastating way. And some of you might be saying, Lynn, stop right now. You're traumatizing me. You are traumatizing me. Yes, we could look away from it and have it be, just never spoken about, and just, we all see it happening, but we all are, let's all be quiet. Let's not talk about it, because lest someone become upset with us. I am speaking on behalf of myself in this moment as a US citizen, just for a moment. And I'm going to say that I am feeling the trauma. I am traumatized, like millions of other people, because losses are coming and gross disrespect is being done to human beings. And one of the gross disrespects that I wanted to address today is the fact that everybody's saying the quiet part out loud now. Media is being bombarded with people who do not mind saying, yeah, this is what we planned the whole time, and this is what's coming down the pike for all of you. So if you're a migrant, if you're an immigrant, if you're part of the LGBTQ community, if you are female, if you are, just so many different groups of people will be affected. If you are the political party that we despise, you have a big, a big D on your back and on your chest. And let's just be honest for a minute and say that there are people who have been voted into office, and people who hold, they might not hold political power, but they do in a way that they have a huge audience on their social media and on their, media platforms. And they are saying things. I heard a person yesterday, watched it. This person saying, I wasn't watching it live because I would never, ever show up to their podcast. But I watched a clip of what they said live yesterday. And I might not be quoting it exactly, but I'll do the best that I can. Explaining to women the glass ceiling, it's made of bricks and you're never breaking through it. Might as well just stop trying now. You will never have rights. And this person actually said, your body, my choice. Your body, my choice. We own you. It's a lie. There might be millions of people, hundreds of millions or tens of millions of people in the United States who truly feel that way. I know there's only about 320 million, I think, 320 or 340 million people in the United States. Massive number of them are children. But a lot of children have been indoctrinated to believe what their parents and their pastors and their teachers and their extended family members are teaching them. And the main focus of this discussion today is about the trauma that we're going through as a nation, whether you are for or against the new presidential administration that's going to be coming in January. They're not waiting until January to enact the power and control that they are absolutely drunk on right now. They are just absolutely high and drunk on their own power right now. And I think that people didn't want to believe the reality of what they were begging for. I think that it felt fun for a while to vent some of their frustrations and not think it through exactly what was going to be brought to bear for them. Because when you vote for somebody, because you think that they're going to back you, that they've got your back, and then you find out, I didn't read all of the fine print on this, and they were saying they're going to deport my family. They might say I might have to say now, they are going to separate me from my own children. And Donald Trump said something when he was running for president the first time, and I'll never forget it. I believe I was watching Lawrence O'Donnell's show. It might have been a different program, but he said right out loud on camera, it was broadcast on television, you know, it's the problem with the United States of America. The people have too much freedom of speech. They have too much freedom of speech. If I'm president, I'm going to pull back on that. Nope. The citizens absolutely should not have this much freedom of speech. And first thing I would do when I'm president is I'll pull back on that. Well, the people who want freedom of speech to be able to go out and say things against the political party that they oppose, or the religious ideology that they oppose, or you know, the sexual identities that they oppose, things like that. It might feel real good to pull back on freedom of speech now, because it would serve their agenda. But once you make those choices and you get them through the courts and they're done away with forever, you won't always have the same person in power to keep things according to your point of view. And then that freedom of speech, when it's lost because you didn't want to have to accommodate for, or loss of religious freedom is taken away because it was protecting your religion. But what about when that leader that you elected is gone and another person comes in and says, yeah, that law is on the books, and now I get to choose by executive order which religion will be our national religion. The Constitution was set up the way it was for a very, very specific reason, to prevent this from happening. This is a whole lot of different thises, not just one thing, of course. But one of the things that is really, really, really giving me a problem is to see how many people are traumatized, not just women. It's not just a problem that's traumatizing women, but a great majority of this is affecting women, and that is the misogyny that is being spoken right out in the open. We suspected it for a long time that certain people were highly misogynistic. But now a new phenomenon has kind of come out for people to see. And some of us who've lived in certain families with certain traditions have already known this for a very long time. But it feels like I can see people being shocked by it because they're waking up to this now, what many, many, many people already recognize, like I said, within their family, within their religious organization, within their workplace. But that is the phenomenon of the female misogynist, women who hate, women, and women who do not want women to have rights. They want women to be a lesser human being than a man, and for some reason rather relish that concept and creating that role for themselves and for others. And I come from a family that has women in it that absolutely debase themselves. And I use that word extremely carefully. I know exactly what I'm saying. They debase themselves for the purpose of being approved by a man, and will agree with a misogynistic spouse, friend, neighbor, relative, pastor, whomever, to be able to find acceptance in their world. I truly believe that that is, and it's a trauma response. It has to do with how a person is raised, and if they have a very significant attachment wound, meaning they did not get a secure attachment to their primary caregiver or caregivers within the first 2 years of their life, they absolutely could have the after effects of that for the remainder of their life, unless they are made aware somehow, if they've learned about it, willingly, sought out information about attachment disorder type issues, and sought information to help them understand how to heal attachment wounds, so that we don't need to keep trying to have someone accept us. A huge amount of people who have did not have secure attachment in childhood, and this is originally the work of John Bowlby. You can look that up. You can just Google John Bowlby attachment styles, and you'll get lots of information on Google about that. But when we look into those attachment issues, if we have certain things happen to us by a certain time in our life, no secure attachment to a primary caregiver in a loving, compassionate, and nurturing way, then we're going to have some issues for the rest of our life until such time that it's healed. When we recognize it, learn about it, and take action steps to heal it, we will continue to function as a person who is, you could be insecure, you could be needing someone to guide you, control you, think for you. You could be having experiences with learned helplessness. You could be having issues with, not wanting to have a close attachment with anybody in a healthy way in your life. You could be avoidant of other people. You could be fearful of other people. You could be anxious around other people. But one of the things that I have been aware of for quite some time is that there is this phenomenon where there are women who absolutely want themselves and other women to be powerless, with men taking complete and total charge of everything. And it really shook me up yesterday when I heard a very famous man in the United States. He has a huge following on his podcast and on social media. And he just came right out and said, this just is with so much arrogance and with so much vitriol, saying, your body, my choice. Meaning, and basically he was saying, if we want to impregnate you, we will, and there's nothing you can do about it. If we have our way, you will not be able to do anything about it. If we force you to bear our children, you're forced to bear our children. And what this is leading to, and this is my very, very, very real concern, that we're going to see a massive increase in rape, not just of women, but of any gendered human being, any person at all. And we're going to see a rise in suicide because there will be women and men and people of multiple different genders, sexual preferences, sexual identities, all of these things. All of these things are factored in, and people will feel the feeling of fear and hopelessness. Fear and hopelessness can absolutely push people to do unthinkable things. And the number of people who are going to be dealing with childhood pregnancies is going to be heartbreaking. It's already heartbreaking. It does exist already in the world. But when we mix lawlessness, lack of conscience, lack of remorse, inability to check oneself, impulse control issues, which is what I'm seeing a lot of in media right now, is lots and lots of impulse control issues where people are just letting it fly. And the repercussions out into the world, when words have weight, words have meaning, they matter. And what we're saying to people out in the world, what we broadcast, we need to be responsible and careful. We need to think about what our words are saying. And when we're giving a massive platform on our massive platform, and I don't have one, but many people do, if we're giving on our massive platform the go ahead, the green light for people to treat women as chattel because they want to, because they decided, yeah, all power for us, zero for them. Yeah, we think that's right. We think that's cool. That's what we want to do. That's what we're doing. It scares me that we're just at the very beginning of this. I think that people don't have the ability to foresee what the actual tipping point will look like. What I mean by that is when it gets to be so broadcast that people who were people of love, light, truth, compassion, and human decency might begin to let go and just say, well, if you can't beat them, then I guess you have to join them. And I think that there are a lot of people who will attempt to find safety in a herd. People don't want to be a freestanding for opposition in the world. It doesn't feel safe to people. There were people who were examples. They were look at Martin Luther King. It was an attempt to end resistance. People were doing everything humanly possible to gain civil rights. And examples were made of some people. You say the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing, you're over with, you're gone. And that was shocking to society at that time. It was just absolutely shocking what was happening. And I am very concerned that we're going to start seeing things that are, this country does not have the stomach for what human beings are capable of doing to each other, because we've lived in a relatively civilized society compared to what could be ahead. Now let's go back to misogyny for a moment. Let's go back to female misogynists. There's an article that I found on my phone, and it's from Psychology Today, and it is written by Barrett Brogard, DM Sci PhD. And underneath that, it says The Mysteries of Love. I don't know if that's a column that person has regularly. I'm not sure. but the article is entitled 12 Ways to Spot a Female Misogynist. Women who hate women may not consciously realize it, but their acts reveal them. And this was posted August 12th, 2019. So it's a 5 years old article. It says, men tend to take the lead in far-reaching misogynistic movements. See also my previous posts on male misogyny here. There's a clickable link. And again, this article is at Psychology Today, and it is titled 12 Ways to Spot a Female Misogynist. But very many women are misogynists too. In fact, some evidence suggests that on Twitter, women use misogynistic language more frequently than men do. Like their male counterparts, female misogynists are driven by either unjustified hate or contempt for women. The female misogynists that are among the most salient in society today can be described as the Puritan, the self-critic, the self-loather, and the she-devil. Here's how to spot them. So here's the misogynistic Puritan. The misogynistic Puritan takes the ideal woman to be domestic, subservient, nurturing, kind, mild-tempered, alluring, youthful, and sexually pure prior to marriage. She has adopted this feminine ideal from her misogynistic husband, family, or acquaintances. And I'll also add in schools and churches, lots of societal imprinting on that. She takes herself to be pretty darn close to the feminine ideal. She is subservient, always standing behind her man as a solid pillar of support. She hates women who deviate from the feminine ideal and takes it to be her life's mission to find ways to discipline them and ultimately get them on the right track. There's I'm not going to say her name in my podcast, but there's a famous family that was on television for, I believe it was on Lifetime or Discovery, if I'm not mistaken, but they were a family that was, there was a woman who was the mom, and she was a submissive and holier than thou housewife and reality television star, seemed to exhibit this behavior, advocating for complete female submission. In a blog post for newlyweds, she shares advice on how women can keep their husbands happy, and that it also includes this. And so be available, and not just available, but be joyfully available for him. Smile and be willing to say, yes, sweetie, I'm here for you, no matter what, even though you may be exhausted and pregnant, and you may not feel like he feels. The next one is the misogynistic self-critic. The misogynistic self-critic is disdainful towards women who are not very feminine, whether it's because they choose not to be or because they are just bad at acting in a traditional way. For instance, women she takes to be too fat, too big, too masculine, too angry, too loud, too competitive, too hardcore, or too alpha. In my family, I was shamed for having short hair. I was told your hair is your crowning glory. And it's a gift that God gave you to please your spouse. And you're displeasing God and displeasing your spouse by having short hair. So you need to grow it out. She is in favor of traditional gender roles and will use any opportunity she gets to preach their social virtue. Men should be dominant alphas. Women should be soft and compliant. She may regard herself as one of the feminine misfits. Suzanne Venkner, author of The Alpha Female's Guide to Men and Marriage, How Love Works, writes that women have become too much like men. They're too competitive, too masculine, too alpha. She attributes modern women's inability to find lasting love to their need to dominate and overpower. Women who want to find lasting love, she argues, need to be soft instead of hard. They need to uncover their femininity. She relates how she used to resent having to be feminine to get along with her husband, but her alpha ways were bumping up against his alpha nature. She writes, we were like two bulls hanging out in the same pen together, and there was too much friction. So she decided to embrace her femininity. She reports on what she learned in this passage. It's liberating to be a beta. I'm an alpha all day long, and it gets tiresome. I concede that I thrive on it, but at the end of the day, I'm spent. Self-reliance is exhausting. Making all the decisions is exhausting. Driving the car, literally or figuratively, is exhausting. It took me a ridiculously long time to get it, but once I did, once I adopted that, the energy I exude and the way I approach my husband directly affects his response and behavior. I changed my tune. And when I did, something happened. The tension disappeared overnight, just like that. Well, almost like that. It was a lot of stop and go at first. First, I'd handle something the right way, that is, by not arguing with him or by not directing his traffic or by being more service oriented, and marvel at the response. Then life would get busy and I'd resort to my old ways. Sure enough, I'd get a different response. So I'd make a mental note of how I messed up and make sure to get it right the next time. Eventually, it became second nature. When disclosing why she decided to embrace her femininity, Venker briefly mentions that she had zero interest in her husband adopting a more feminine role. This may at first seem like a logical reason to change, but her claim that she had zero interest in her husband adopting a more feminine role implies that she wanted her husband to be the person in charge, the alpha. She clung to his desire even while embracing her alpha ways in her marriage. But this means that her excuse for changing her ways wasn't logical after all. Cognitive dissonance may have prompted her to adjust. She wanted herself and her husband to be the alpha. She wanted both herself and her husband to be the alpha leader. Something must give. So here's the misogynistic self-loather. The misogynistic self-loather has adopted a general attitude of contempt toward every one of her own filthy kind, including herself. She regards women, including herself, as promiscuous, manipulative, dishonest, irrational, incompetent, or unintelligent. She tends to be in denial about her own self-loathing, but not usually about her contempt for other women. Hulu's dystopian television series, The Handmaid's Tale, adopted from Margaret Atwood's novel of the same name, offers several examples of misogynistic self-loathers. Inside the Republic of Gilead, where most women are infertile, the remaining fertile women are enslaved as handmaids by the commanders and their wives. The series follows the plight of June Offred, a handmaid owned by Commander Fred Waterford and his wife Serena Joy. The most important part of Offred's job is as a handmaid, the most important part of Offred's job as a handmaid is to carry a child for the commander and his wife. During a monthly act of ritualistic sexual violence called the ceremony, which was a rape, Offred is shown lying with her head in Serena's lap while Commander Waterford rapes her. Serena is one of the story's female accomplices who actively participate in the dehumanization of their own gender. But the privileged wives are not the only female misogynists in the story. Early on in the story, we learn that one of the Gilead's enforcers, Aunt Lydia, played by Ann Dowd, who trains, disciplines, punishes, and if necessary, tortures and kills the handmaids, is a pro-life extremist who sees herself as saving the women from sin, or in Aunt Lydia's words, from murdering babies, orgies, and Tinder. Serena and Aunt Lydia are misogynistic self-loathers. They have no real power. The commanders are ultimately in control, yet they side with their oppressors and participate in the dehumanization of their own gender. Why? Their self-loathing is no doubt self-punishment, but their misogyny towards other women is not. Perhaps their contempt for their own gender gives them some semblance of control in an incomprehensible and unjust world. Or perhaps they thrill at inflicting pain on women, periodically pausing to self-punish and rid themselves of the built-up shame. And here we are with the misogynistic she-devil. The she-devil sees herself as superior to other women, and at least on a level with, if not above, the top alpha males she encounters. In her view, other women are manipulative, dishonest, irrational, incompetent, and unintelligent, but somehow she's exempted. She might possess some stereotypical feminine virtues like beauty and slenderness, but she perceives herself as instantiating the stereotypical masculine rules of intelligence, the strength of character and rationality, and her behavior is more manly than most of her coworkers, classmates, or friends. Don't be surprised if she can outdrink all of them. She is in a constant competition with other women and would rather kick a woman off the career ladder or out of school than help her progress. But she masterfully escapes detection and punishment for her bad behavior. As you wait for the elevator with your box of memorabilia and your withering office plant, your rival is one step further up the career ladder, her triumphant laughter hanging in the air. She is host to a dark personality traits. We call this the dark quad. Her firm belief that she is superior to other women points most strongly to narcissism, but narcissistic traits are also routinely present in borderline personalities and psychopaths. In the general population, dark traits tend to be subclinical, which means that they are not associated with the level of dysfunction seen in clinical cases. This is super important. I need to pause here for a second. That last sentence was extremely important. In the general population, dark traits tend to be subclinical, which means they're not spoken about in the office with a practitioner. That means that they're not going to be diagnosed when you are in an office with a practitioner. If you're saying that I am being, victimized, I'm being traumatized, I am being injured, and it's a repetitive pattern, and this person is absolutely vicious and cruel, and they do these things and they're out of control. They seem to show no remorse. They show no compassion. They don't seem to have a conscience, and they don't have the ability to self-check, and their impulse control is completely obliterated. Most of the times when we're with a clinician, they are not prepared to have the discussion with us about what you do in a situation like that. I tried it once with one of my psychotherapists years ago, about 4 years ago. And that person, when I said that I'm dealing with a completely toxic person, my practitioner said, now, nope, we're not going to talk like that in this office. She was very, very condescending. She spoke to me like I was a third grader. And I personally wouldn't speak to a third grader that way, but she did to me. And what she said was, there's no such thing. Remember, Lynn, there's no such thing as a toxic person. There's only such thing as toxic behavior. So you can't judge the person. You can only judge their behavior. And she didn't know that she essentially got herself terminated as my mental health practitioner in that moment. And I completed the appointment because it was almost over anyways. And when I left, I just thought, I'm never going to darken your doorway again. I'm not going to call you and explain what you did. I'm not going to try to repair this ruptured relationship. You just told me exactly how you feel about evil and that it's fine with you. And you will not acknowledge a person who does evil as a toxic person, a poisonous person, a person who has a belief that's so strong that they have an entitlement to do these behaviors. So I'm just going to go back into this and finish it up quickly. It says, but mixing high functionality with sinister character traits is more likely to give you a Molotov cocktail than a cosmopolitan. Vivienne Perry, a British science journalist and broadcaster, describes her mother as a misogynist of this type. When Perry revealed to her mother that she wanted to study science at the university, her mother responded, "Whatever for?" Perry was taken aback, but it made her wonder, why was my mother so against helping anyone of her own gender climb to the same heights as she did? Why was she so loath to laud female achievement, even when the female forging ahead was her own daughter? When looking at the past through her contemporary lens, The answer to her question turned out to be terrifyingly simple. She writes, I fear my mother was a misogynist. So there's, oh, this article is almost over. This is just the conclusion. According to Perry, female misogyny is even more prevalent today than in her mother's day. Male misogyny runs rampant in today's society, but as Perry points out, female misogyny can be even more toxic. According to Perry, when there are so few women at higher levels, many of them think they must behave like a tigress, even using every weapon at their disposal to protect their position against other sisters. So, and about the author, Barrett Brogard, DM Sci, PhD, is a professor of philosophy and the director of the Brogard Lab for Multisensory Research at the University of Miami. So again, this article was at Psychology Today, at psychologytoday.com, and the title of the article is 12 Ways to Spot a Female Misogynist. I will speak very briefly about, I'm going to conclude with an example of something that a female misogynist did to me and felt absolutely no remorse for doing it. This was one of my siblings who decided that I wasn't holding up my feminine ideals enough, and I wasn't Christian enough, and that she was going to repair me. She was going to put me sort of into I'm not giving you any notice on this sort of boot camp. So when my children were in elementary school, and I will add my husband's brother, my children were in 2nd and 5th grades. My husband's brother and his mother had passed away 3 weeks apart. This is in 2001. We spoke on the phone, and she had come to the wake for my husband's brother and for my husband's mother. And she was disapproving of my spouse's family being Catholic, and that there was going to be a Catholic funeral, and it made her uncomfortable because, people don't believe right. You're all off in the wrong direction. And I just really, really want to help all of you sort of attitude, help you so that I can tolerate you. And she had been giving me disapproval for my own lifestyle. I was married, a mother of 2 children. And I just simply wasn't being enough of a woman of the highest quality. And she just couldn't stand it. And so I was being criticized. She would mail me letters, and they would be really cute little note cards, but they always had a very general reference to something I had done, or something like she's leading me by example, or inviting me to go to something with her church with her, because she was reaching out to try to save me, over and over again, letting me know that I just needed her to rescue me from my own attitude, my own way of being, my own life, and that I was just failing at being a woman. I was failing at being a wife. I was failing at being a mother. I was failing at being a Christian, and I was failing at being a human being. And it's really funny because she decided she invited me to go to a church that was only about 10 miles from my house, and she lived about 50 some miles from my house, maybe, I don't know, between 50 and 60 miles away. But when she got an idea that she was going to get the pastor's wife from the church that she wanted me to go to drop in at my house at 8 o'clock in the morning with her Bible in her arm and saying, "Hi, I'm from this church. I'm a friend of your sister's, and we thought it would be best if I stopped by and begin doing some Bible studies with you. So I'm here to do that now." And I was in my pajamas, and my children were at the counter having their breakfast. My husband was up. We were in the middle of getting our children ready to go to school. They were in 2nd and 5th grade. And she thought that that's time for her to barge into our house and sit us all down for a Bible study. And I said, I wasn't expecting you. This is an extremely hectic time for our family right now. And you don't get to come here and decide what we're going to do inside of our own house and what we're going to believe and how we're going to conduct our lives. I don't know you. And I hope you have a nice day, but you have to leave now. And she argued. She thought, well, it'll only take about half an hour. And I said, no. And you need to go. And I shut the door. And I got a phone call from my sibling, from my sister, telling me how badly I humiliated her because she had asked that friend to come and help me. And I was so ungracious and ungrateful and rude and nasty and foul and just a complete abomination. My behavior was just absolutely awful. And that wasn't enough for me to break away completely. It would take about another 15 years for me to recognize that I need to let go. I need to just completely let go. But the message again and again and again and again was, you're not enough. You'll never be good enough. You're broken, faulty, bad, broken, and you're faulty, bad, broken, shameful, and malfunctioning. And somebody needs to fix you because you are horrible at being a woman, horrible at being a mother, horrible at being a human being, horrible at being a Christian, horrible at being anything. And God loves you, but God can't stand you. And I'm seeing the same thing playing out in the world right now. Oh, we love women. They're just all horrible, bad, faulty, malfunctioning, and God thinks they're despicable. And we need to fix them. It's a horrendously shaming attitude towards women. Shame is a core emotion. And there are two emotions that are core emotions that are involved here. And they are shame and disgust. Feeling shame and disgust towards women for the purpose and expressing that shame and disgust and encouraging them to feel self-loathing and to put them into a state of shame and disgust for their own selves. And then defining them and defining their role for them and saying, you must remain inside of this paradigm that we're setting up for you, or else you are worthless. So it's worthlessness programming as well, based in shame and disgust, which are two core emotions. And I'll just quickly remind everyone that shame is not just an emotion, but it's also a response. It is also a physical response. When a person is feeling shame, when we shame somebody, they just collapse in on themselves. The head comes down, the chin goes to the chest, the shoulders droop, and they actually physically try to become smaller. They want to take up less space. They go into a state of disgust for the self. There's no way for a human being to treat another human being to incite that in another human being. But when the guy yesterday was announcing the glass ceiling, it ain't glass, ladies, it's made of bricks, and you're never, ever, ever, ever gonna break through it. Not if we can help it. Your body, my choice was the next phrase he said. Your body, my choice. We own you. How many women are being hurt by that right now? How many women are going to believe it? These very same people are going to be the people who are standing in the room pleading with a doctor to save their spouse's life when the spouse has an ectopic pregnancy. And the doctor might be thinking, hey, you're the person who put the guy in office who repealed Roe v. Wade and made it so that I will get a life sentence in jail if I save your wife's life by taking out the fallopian tube that has a live fetus in it. You're the person who voted for this, pal. You tied my hands behind my back and made it so that I cannot save your wife. And that woman, that physician, that man, whoever that physician is going to protect their livelihood. There are people who are right now being forced out of their careers, and they won't. There's people who are leaving the practice of OBGYN and going into a different form of practice because they cannot handle how big the threats are, that they will lose their livelihood, they will lose their freedom, they will lose everything they have in the world. The legal battles, having to represent yourself in court, all of that stuff, the malpractice cases, but the criminality of it, being known as a criminal in your community, is just too much for people. It's the shame and disgust, those two core emotions. The shame for being cast out of society, because that's what life imprisonment is. And the disgust for the entire system that came undone, that did this to society. The disgust for how many women and girls are going to be in body bags. I worked in a hospital. I literally worked in an emergency room and up on medical surgical floors and all throughout the hospital as float. I worked there for years. And I can't tell you how many people, I'm sorry if this is triggering, but this is reality. People passed away, and it's a grunt's job in the hospital. It is a nurse assistant's job. And I was a nurse assistant for a year, and then an ITA, which is an immediate treatment assistant. In the emergency room, same job, but it's called an emergency room technician in some hospitals. But we were called ITAs, immediate treatment assistant, meaning you assist a physician, you assist a respiratory therapist, you assist a nurse, you assist whoever is doing the treatment for the patient. You assist them. So one of the things that was one of my job description duties was when someone passes away, we would prepare them to go to the morgue. We would put the toe tag on. We would put them in a shroud. We would put them on a cart and then take them to the morgue and put them in a chamber in the morgue. And I can assure you, hospitals are going to be putting women and girls into chambers in the morgue because of having their rights stripped away to have a life-saving procedure. Something that would have kept mommy still in the house, making breakfast for the kids before school. Something that would have kept mommy at her job where she's earning half of the income to support her family so they can live in the nice house that they're paying the mortgage on, with the nice vehicles that are on the driveway and in the garage, so that the kids can go to dance classes and engage in sports, and they can, do whatever it is that they're doing, all the stuff that they do to prepare for college. Being involved in groups called Destination Imagination and Model UN and all that stuff that they were doing in school. Takes parent involvement. They're sentencing children to be doing this without a mom. This is highly, highly traumatizing for our society. Some of you have already lost a woman in your life because she didn't have access to the medical care she needed, because people who can never have a pregnancy because they're men have decided what a woman must endure because of their religious beliefs or their personal constitution, whatever false premise that they've purchased. throughout their life that they believe as the truth. But women, we thought we had gotten to the point where we've got women in Congress, we've got women in government positions, we've got women in the Senate, but not nearly at the proportion that they should be now for the amount of struggle that we've been through. And another thing that's extremely important to point out here is that the women who do hold positions of power, we have seen many of them in media, holding positions of power, cable news, local news, whatever, writing articles, blogging, YouTube channels, all kinds of stuff. And they're misogynistic women. And they're actually actively working against the rights of other women. Why? Why would anybody do that? Lots of different reasons, but there were 4 reasons given in the article that I read today. I really appreciate you being here for this discussion. It's been sensitive. It's not an easy discussion to have, and some of you may be feeling relief from hearing someone speak on this, but you might also at the same time be feeling triggered. And if you are, please, 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 I urge you with kindness and compassion, with love for humanity, and with the utmost care, please, when the video stops, please be kind to yourself. Notice what comes up for you for the rest of the day, and be extra, extra gentle on your own central nervous system, in your body, in your emotions, in your spirit. Please. It's most important. We do need to do the trauma recovery work of having the discussions, but we must always, always follow it with self-partnering of the highest quality and the best care that we can give for each other and for ourselves. Please, please don't forget that you're included in one of the people who needs care from you. It's very, very important. So my video is longer than I wanted to make it. So, but the message at the end, what on earth can we do about this? Self-care, self-care. And if it gets too much for you, the stimuli that's out in the world, media and stuff, take a break from it. Just take a break from it and engage yourself in some things that just kind of let you take a breather, and just give yourself a little space and a little bit of kindness. It goes a very, very long way. So thank you for joining me today. If you're interested in working with me as your certified trauma recovery coach, my name is Lin Bouthillier. You can find me at linbouthillier.com. You can reach me at my email, which is lin@linbouthillier.com. You can call my phone number, 716-994-3052. I would love to have a discovery call with you, and I'd be so happy to work with you as your co-equal peer-to-peer support for trauma recovery. I have lots and lots of information and tools and books and things that would help, and plenty of resources for you. So I look forward to hearing from you. Please remember that self-care is never, ever selfish. It is essential to trauma recovery. Please like, subscribe, share, put comments in the comment section, and hit the notification bell. It's helping my channel to grow, and I appreciate it very much. And also, lastly, please remember that you are infinitely worthy of your own trauma recovery. And I really look forward to making another video and being with you again. Have the best day. Bye.